Well, good afternoon and happy Tuesday, SLAE family. Happy New Year as well. Super excited to be here and kick off our first speaker for 2023. And today we are beginning a very important series about living your best life, being your best self in 2023. And there's no one more fun to kick it off with than our special guest today, Candi Hagan. Candi, welcome. We're so glad to have you here.
Hello, Leanne. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And Candi is a professional organizer and the founder of CEO by Candi, which you're going to hear about in just a minute. But one of the things that I think is super fun is when we have a guest who has gone off with the entrepreneurial spirit and started a business, and they're pursuing the things that they're really passionate about in life. But their background is really different. You may remember a year or so ago, we had an attorney who was working in a nonprofit to rescue dogs, and there's always interesting things. So Candi, would you take a minute before we dive in and share with everybody what your professional background is and how you got the passion for what you are doing today?
Absolutely. So actually, I am a pharmacist. I graduated with a bio degree and worked in a lab. And then I went to pharmacy school, and so I'm a pharmacist. I think I was thinking about this question, and I remember distinctly my mom. I think I was like 5 years old. And for some reason, my mom did not like the way I had my dolls. I don't know what I did with my dolls, but I did something, and she didn't like it. So she told me to fix it and to like clean up. So I remember distinctly having my dolls lined up on top of my dresser. And then I thought, oh, that looks so nice. And then as I got older, my mom had a store and I became responsible for the jewelry, and I love displaying, and I don't know, they just happened. I just really liked it, and it just kind of carried over as I got older.
Outstanding. And your company is called CEO by Candi. And can you share with everybody what CEO stands for, please?
Yes. So I love that acronym, but it stands for create, enhance, and organize. And I did that because I think it is important. It's not just about organization. It's about a lifestyle, making your life simpler, and having, clutter kind of sometimes can not have you think clearly. So when you have, you're not, when you're organized, then you can find things quicker. You don't waste time looking for things. So,
and you don't get frustrated too. That
right.
helps. So talking about clutter, let's talk about what clutter is, especially we do have people from other countries that watch us, but most of the people here are Americans, and we are the worst. So can you share some stats with our viewers about what the American clutter bug looks like, please?
Yeah. So one of the interesting things that I found out was the US has about 4%, maybe even less, of children in the world, but we own 40% of the toys. And I think that's a common thing, for Christmas, birthdays, and everybody's giving toys, and before you know it, it just takes over the house. I know it took over mine.
Yes, absolutely.
And yes, and the other thing was they say the average woman has 120 items of clothing. I am guilty of having much, much more. But no matter how much you have, the statistics is that we reuse 20% of our clothing. So 80% of it we are not even giving a second thought about.
I'm bad at math, but if an average woman has 120 pieces of clothes and they're using 20%, that's a lot that's sitting there wasted. A lot. So while we start to tackle the declutter, I always want to make sure everybody gets value out of being here when we have an awesome guest like you. And I know that there will be people in two different positions because nobody's perfect. That we know for sure. Right. So some people are in like that worst case scenario, and pretty much they're overwhelmed, whether it's their own stuff, their kids' stuff, their spouse's stuff, or everybody's stuff. Like they just feel like there's clutter and excess everywhere. And they don't even know where to begin because it's just too overwhelming. And then the other part are there are going to be some people who are like, you know what? I'm pretty good. This is good. This is good. You walk in my living room. It's nice. My kitchen is nice. It's good. But everyone's got like that one secret room that they don't ever want somebody to open the door. And it could be their basement, a closet, their home office, but there's just that one space where they're like, yeah, I'm really good except for there. So if we have people in both camps, so to speak, what advice would you give somebody? Let's say we'll start with the whole place is just too much to deal with. How would you advise somebody to start when they're just overwhelmed with clutter?
One of the things that you could start just as a quick thing, and you can involve the entire family. If you have kids, they can do this too, is maybe have everyone designate a basket or a bag or whatever it is that you have, and set the timer for 10 minutes, and then say, okay, let's see how many things that we can pick up that don't belong where they should, like this doesn't belong in the kitchen, this doesn't belong in the bathroom, this doesn't belong on the living room floor. And then after 10 minutes, then whatever you have in your basket, you put away. And if you do that a couple of times, that kind of gets the ball rolling. And then you can be like, oh, well, that looks a little bit better. Oh, I feel better about that.
That's actually smart and fun, because then if you're doing it, it's like a game. And especially kids who are quite reluctant to clean up.
Right.
10 minutes, everybody can endure 10 minutes. That's a pretty good
Right.
idea. I love that.
Yeah, you make it a game for the kids and say, who can collect the most?
Yeah. Maybe there's a prize, but don't buy them something else.
Right, exactly.
Okay, and then what about the hermit mess? Meaning the person who's like, everything's great, but I've got this little thing that I'm hiding over in the corner. I don't want anybody to look in that one room. Like, how do they manage that if they've got it all under control and just one hot mess that they're just trying to somehow manage or hide from everybody?
Yeah, everybody has that room. I probably have more than one room. I would say you have to start small, because if you look at it all at once, it's so overwhelming and then you do nothing. So if you say, okay, I'm just going to tackle this one little area, and you tackle that one little area, and then you see that looks nice, and before you know it, then one area leads to another area. And if you just do it piece by piece, one section at a time, and then before you know it, and it doesn't have to, everybody thinks, oh, you have to do it all at once, and it's really overwhelming. So I think if you do one, say if it's your basement and the steps, like for me, we had stuff on our steps. You tackle the steps, say, let's clear out the steps, and then that's it, and you're done for that day. And then you're like, oh, that looks really nice, and then you're motivated to continue.
That's awesome. That's a great idea. And, there are tips that I'm going to ask you to share. And there's also the fact that you offer your own personal service, which we're going to talk about, because I was lucky enough to have you do something in my home, which I will talk about in just a second. But what are just some overall tips? So, what would you tell somebody, common areas of clutter and things that you would help a client to do to kind of start weaning down the amount of what they have?
Right. So one of the things I think a lot of people, I talked about clothing, is what I call the hanger trick. So every time that you wear a piece of clothing and then turn the hanger the opposite way that you have your clothes, so I wore this, and then the next time that you do it, you keep doing that. And then by the time the month is done, you see what clothing you have worn and what clothing you have not worn. And then you can reevaluate either a month or a season. Like, okay, I really didn't wear this. Why didn't I wear it? Do I really love it? Does it not fit? And then you can evaluate that way. And I would say when you are about to declutter, you can divide it into donation, maybe, and definitely keep.
That's such a great idea, because if we're only using 20% of what we have, I can say, I don't always know, have I worn that wreath? Like, I can't remember. So that would let me either decide I don't want something or expand my 20%. That's a great
Right.
idea.
Exactly.
And there are incredible charities, especially we do have some men in here, but it's majority women. There are some amazing charities that we can donate our clothes to.
Right. Yes. The one that I really like is Dress for Success. And it is for women who want to enter the workforce. And it doesn't even, professional clothes, definitely, but they would take all your clothing and they have a boutique where they can then sell the clothing and use that to help these women be successful.
That's fantastic. And we'll, we'll do at the end of this, we'll pop some charities in the comments. So if people
Yes.
take your great advice, they want to do it. Now, I'm going to confess here, I have to just really let this out of the bag. So for me, I love my wardrobe and all that fun stuff. I'm really good about that. My kitchen, we're pretty good. My living room, we're pretty good. It's my desk. And this camera is carefully aimed so you all cannot see it. But that's where I fall down. Like, it's paper, it's comments and notes and Post-its and like, holy smokes. What about somebody who's struggling with either their professional office, their home office, or a extreme amount of paper haunting them? What would you tell someone hypothetically that they might want to do about that?
There's a couple things. One is a lot of you can digitize, you can scan it, you can make a document out of the paperwork that you have. And one of the things that I like is if you touch the paper once, like say you come in, okay, you have the mail, touch that mail once. So either you're filing it, you're shredding it, or it's a bill to be paid, and you can designate, you can like put it in a nice box and say, okay, here are the bills. And when it's time for you to pay your bills, that's when then you have that box. But if you leave it all out, then it kind of piles up. That's one of the things I think I learned tackling my own paperwork. Touch the paper once and be done.
That's a good rule.
Because if you start touching and moving it around, you're like, oh, I'll put it on this pile. Oh, yeah, I'll put it on this pile. And just be done.
And do you think that they should pass a law outlawing Post-it notes? Because I'm just thinking that they should.
And the other thing you could do is if you don't want to like scan it, or if you are not going to put it in a document, you can take a quick picture.
Oh, that's a great idea too. Yeah. Okay.
And then when you're done with it, then you can delete the picture.
Now, one of the awesome things that you do is you teach people to utilize bins and baskets and stuff like that. Can you talk about how that helps out?
I think it helps contain whatever it is that you have. And some people like clear baskets on the clear bins. Some people like baskets, so it hides certain things. And I think it depends on what you want to organize, what you want to contain. So it just depends on your preference. I think I would like to do is simplify and make it usable for the person to maintain. Because if you can go in, you can organize and make it look beautiful, but if they're not going to maintain it and it's not easy for them, it's not simple for them, then they won't.
Yes. And I have to say, so we moved into our new home back in May, and I think begged you to come do my pantry. And for the first time in my life, I had a walk-in pantry. It's so exciting. And I remember you kind of came in and you just looked around and you were real quiet, One of the things that's great is you set up a system. So, all of the drinks go one place, all the canned goods go one place, all the snack stuff goes one place. And not only is it beautiful and organized, I know what I have. And before I go to the grocery store, I just look in there and I'm like, oh, we're low on tomato sauce. Oh, my kids' favorite pretzels, we're almost out of them. It's so great, as opposed to everything's even just shoved up on shelves, even if they were kind of by category, like the way you set up the little bins. It's amazing. I highly recommend, if you are in Maryland, that you talk to this woman. And speaking of which, you do consultations for people in person and virtual. Can you talk about that process? Do they get a pricing from you first? How does all that work?
Yes. So, yes, I can come in, do a consultation. We can talk about what your needs are for that space, and then we can set up times and dates, and that's how that will work. And any thing online, we can set up a time, and just I need to see the space, what you need to do, what's the word I'm looking for? How you function throughout the day, and how it's going to make make your life simpler.
Absolutely. And that comes to the great thing. After the person tackles their own mess or is lucky enough to have a professional like you tackle their mess, the maintenance, what are some things that are important to maintain the organization that you have?
Yes, I mean, we're everybody is busy, and I do understand, you're not going to be able to always be perfect. And we're not looking for perfection here. What we're looking for is so that where exactly where everything is and what will work for you. So if you come in and you're like in a rush and you're just getting home and you got to take the kids somewhere, I understand. Okay, you have something, maybe that like mail or whatever it is that you put on the counter, but make sure when you come back that you take care of that, because if you let it pile up again, then that's when we all get in trouble. Not in trouble, but that's when we're like, oh no, here it goes again. But because I do that too. You come in, you're busy, and you're like, okay, take care of that, and then you move on. But if you come back, even if it's like 5 minutes, 5 minutes is better than taking a day trying to declutter and trying to reorganize everything.
It's
so
funny.
I would say 5 minutes a day, and I think you're good.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And there's such a difference. I was not born with that incredible skill that you have, but now that you have done my pantry, like that was the first time I ever had professional help. That sounds so funny, but that was the first time I had professional. But now I walk in and I'm like, oh, it's so nice. And it's beautiful. And it's funny because when the groceries come back, my son actually thinks it's cool and he'll help me put everything exactly where it's supposed to go. And it's so beautiful. And then I come into my office and I sit at my desk and I'm kind of like, okay, I just look straight at the computer. So would you say that there is like a piece or anything besides the organization that really contributes to people's quality of life?
I would say one of the things I would say, think about when you're buying. Buy less, buy quality. Because we all think, oh, this is cute, this is on sale. We all do that. I think for even for me is buy less, buy better.
That's smart. Buy less, buy better. Words to live by. Well, I can't thank you enough for being here and giving us the tip. Just that hanger tip alone. That's everything. But thank you for all the tips, and I will start scanning. And please come look at my pantry anytime and don't come into my office. But for all of you, if you are watching this in the Facebook group, you can leave comments or questions for Candi and she will respond. If you are interested in reaching out to her to have a consultation or, virtual or in person, Candi, would you give out your contact email? That would be great.
Yes, it is CEO by Candi, and that's CANDI @gmail.com.
So CEOBYCANDI @gmail.
Right.
Okay, fantastic.
And that's also my Instagram.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So that's their Instagram too. They can follow you on Instagram. Perfect.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it's really incredible to have you here and have you give it that information. And look, if you can get somebody to help you, it is everything, because it's easier to maintain a system than to just tackle it in the world of randomness. Okay, I've let a lot out of myself today, so we'll move on with that topic. So thank you, Candi, for being here. Also, if you are watching this on YouTube, please feel free to leave comments or do a little thumbs up. That'll really help. We want to help get Candi's business out there. She's phenomenal at what she does, and we really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.